4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the place yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to a Thursday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in, 855-212-4227. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZachGelb. Got Stuart Kovacs, got Moist Mike rocking and rolling with me. We'll take you, as always, all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Seth Payne, the former NFL defensive lineman for the Texans and Jaguars, he's going to stop by an hour from now with all the craziness that is going on inside the AFC South and the rest of the NFL landscape, with free agency officially getting underway yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern time with the new league year. You have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons already getting investigated for tampering with Kirk Cousins, who's now with Atlanta, Saquon Barkley, who is now with Philadelphia. And you learn something new each and every day. And I'm pretty plugged into the NFL. You know, I know a lot of people, coaches, players, league officials, things like that. But with the NFL, the rule book is so big that I feel as if each year you learn multiple things. I knew about the legal tampering window on Monday and Tuesday. Clearly, we've talked about that. No crap. But the part that I didn't know is that the GM, like a Howie Roseman, who's being accused of having contact with Saquon Barkley directly, can't have contact directly with the player. But he could have contact with his representation. Now, he can't have contact with the player if the player has no representation and represents himself. But that, to me, is such a dumb rule. Like, you allow legal tampering to occur on Monday and Tuesday. So a player can basically agree to terms on a deal and the framework of a deal, but they're not technically allowed to speak to the front office that is negotiating that deal to see if it's going to be a fit and get a one-on-one communication with that front office official until yesterday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And let me just let you in on a little secret, because I once went on a big-time rant on this network that people in Milwaukee loved when the NBA was selective tampering with the Milwaukee Bucks over, I think it was Bogdanovich, who they were trying to sign, and then he ended up not signing there because of the investigation. I don't understand why this rule is in place, but if you think this is the only time that this has occurred, it's the first time it's occurred, well, I have a bridge to sell you as well, and I'll do so right when the show ends at 6:01 p.m. Eastern time. Just line up right outside the studio at 345 Hudson Street, and I'll sell the bridge to the highest bidder. Like, come on. If you don't think all these players are talking to the front office officials, then you probably believe that a lot of other things that aren't true are true. It's just so stupid. Like, I didn't want to ruin some kid's dream right there and talk about one specific holiday where we all know that someone is real. Like, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to dash any dreams right now, right out of the gate. But this is just like a situation when it comes to Saquon Barkley and it comes to Kirk Cousins. Who gives a rat's ass if Saquon Barkley, and it was revealed by James Franklin of all people, can that guy do anything right? All right, you can't win a big game. Now you can't dominate a big moment, James Franklin. He was the one that revealed that, like, Howie Roseman was talking to Saquon and all that stuff, which is just wild. So Howie was talking to Saquon, and then the deal gets done. Who cares? Kirk Cousins, I guess, was talking to Terry Fontenot. Who cares? Like, Samter, this is the biggest non-story ever. It's like a rule that is there, and I get it. If a rule is there, you should follow the rules. But sometimes there are rules that are there that everyone violates and everyone laughs at. And then the one time or the like another time, 2 times that it's actually going to be sought after and people are going to try to go get a punitive action, people are like up in arms today. Like if you're a Giant fan and you're saying, oh, the Eagles need to be punished, or if you're a Vikings fan and you're saying, oh, the Atlanta Falcons need to be punished, I'm going to say this in a very polite way. You're a loser, all right? Like, just go on out there and be up in arms and be outraged about something else. Is this a big deal to you, Samter? Because I don't find this to be a big deal whatsoever, and I think it's just a giant waste of time because it happens all around the league. It's like when the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. Like, you're not supposed to go over 45, but everyone goes over 45. So if you're going 50, if you're going 55, okay. But once you get past like 10 miles over the speed limit, let's say, then if a cop pulls you over and you get a ticket, it's deserved. But if you're going 45 miles or the speed limit's 45 miles an hour and you get a speeding ticket for doing 52, it's like, what the heck are we doing? And that's what I feel like with this rule right now. It's what the heck are we doing and why are we actually pursuing this?
My thought, I guess, either what they did was so egregious that while, like you're saying, while everybody was doing it, what they were doing must have been either so egregious, or it's just kind of one of those things where, like, listen, if everyone's going 70, and Tom Brady did this whole, everybody's doing this. If you get caught, you get caught.
What is Tom Brady? You're talking about from Deflategate?
With Deflategate.
Yeah, which he wasn't wrong about.
One of the arguments was...
most overblown controversy ever in sports.
But so the idea that, like...
Don't get me started on that. I'm in a peaceful mood on this Thursday. You bring up Tom Brady and Deflategate, I could do a 3-hour show. You are poking the bear here, and the bear wants to just hibernate and enjoy himself on this Thursday.
Listen, the worst GOAT of all time, the biggest cheating GOAT of all time, but whatever, that's a whole other story.
You're talking about all the Yankee players that you rooted for growing up as a kid?
Everybody was cheating also. But that's the thing also, right? Same thing with baseball. Everybody was cheating. It was just certain guys who got caught. So you can't say because they got caught, everyone was doing it, so why are you punishing me? You got caught. And so all those other guys who were doing wrong stuff, if they got caught, would have gotten punished also. So I guess the issue is just more either A, something really egregious happened, that's why the NFL is investigating, or if everyone's doing something wrong and these are the only 2 teams who were dumb enough to get caught, then you have to, because listen, Kirk Cousins said things in his press conference that made it sound like,
They
there was
probably
some
doesn't even
tampering.
know the rules, honestly.
Yeah, Kirk
I didn't know the
Cousins
rule
said
about
that he was
this.
talking to guys on Tuesday,
Yeah.
and he wasn't supposed to be. So at the end of the day, it's just someone said something they weren't supposed to say, and now it's public, and so the NFL has to investigate. It's going to be a slap on the wrist. It's going to mean nothing. But
Lost
if you
a
get
draft
caught,
pick? Fifth round pick?
Like a 7th round
Fourth
pick.
round pick?
Compensatory pick or
you can't issue you can't issue a punishment of a 7th round pick. If you're going to actually punish, you got to give take away a 4th or a 5th.
No, not for something that's like that. Like you're saying, if it's something that everybody
Now
does
I'm
and it
outraged.
doesn't really matter.
Now I'm offended.
Yeah, whatever. You would be. You would be. You're the guy who defends the,
Because
the
you know
cheating
why?
GOAT and the coach.
You know why? Because if this happened to the Patriots about 15 years ago, people would want the death penalty. But it happens to the Eagles. It happens to the Falcons, and people are like, so what? And I'm saying so what as well. But let's just be consistent on what we say, so what? Like, I guarantee you this, and you're new to being able to root for a football team that's actually competent, so I have the whole playbook here. I'll tell you how this goes. If this was Kansas City, let's say Kansas City got a big free agent. I don't know if it was Calvin Ridley or it was Saquon Barkley, whoever it was to bolster their offense, and this was a story, people would be a lot more upset. And I know the Eagles are a good team. The Falcons are fine. I don't think, though, either of those teams are polarizing enough right now where you're going to have the outrage over the player that they brought in where people are going to say, hey, you got to take away a big-time draft pick. And here's the rule, by the way. Tim McManus, who covers the Eagles and works for ESPN, he says teams are not allowed to talk directly to players during the negotiating window unless the player represents himself. So that's what's obviously been violated here. Who cares? I think the bigger thing that I wonder, because, right, Samter, you're saying how egregious was it? Like, if everyone's doing this, what made them different than everybody else? And I do think you're right. It's because they said things in their press conference. And I didn't even know this until Sean Pendergast, who is co-host with Seth Payne, is going to join us later. And that's why we're having Seth on. But I tweeted out, like, who cares? And he's like, oh, Mike Florio cares. Now, I love Florio. Florio's a friend of the show. Florio comes on all the time and is always an enjoyable interview, and we always have an enjoyable chat with him. But I guess Florio was the one, and I haven't read the article on Pro Football Talk, which is a great way to cover football. But I guess Florio was the one that pointed out the whole Howie Roseman Saquon thing and the whole Kirk Cousins thing being said in his press conference, and Florio brought it to attention. And once Florio brings it to attention, then a lot more eyeballs and a lot more ears will see it and will hear it. And now it's one of those things where it's like, okay, the NFL just can't ignore this, even though that they probably should. But to go back to what you were saying, Samter, here's my question. This legal tampering window, which you could tell the NFL is annoyed that it's called the legal tampering window, because one of my best friends in this business, a guy that really loves me, and he's a guy that could...
Why?
Oh, he could find a way to take a lot of jokes. That's my pal, Andrew Siciliano. Hates my guts because I had a little fun with him back in the day by saying Scott Hansen says that he doesn't go to the bathroom during Red Zone to you, and then he took a shot in a jovial way at Hansen. We put it out on social media, and he was all annoyed because he accused us of just being clickbait. But the other day when the NFL Network coverage, and I think it was Siciliano, I had it on in the background, so I wasn't actually watching, but Siciliano was like made it clear during on Monday or Tuesday on the NFL Network, he was like, this is not a legal tampering window. That's not what this is. Like, I forget what the term he was using. So the NFL is clearly annoyed that people are saying it's a legal tampering window, because when you do that, you imply for all those other years that all these people were tampering before free agency started, which was the truth and which was the case. And that's why the NFL implemented this however many years ago that they did. But the question now becomes, Samter, if you allow something to be legal that was once illegal and you open up a 2-day window, when does the new illegal stuff actually start, if that makes sense? So if Monday's the day where the old illegal stuff can be legal until Wednesday when it becomes official, when do the other smart GMs like Howie Roseman and Terry Fontenot start dialing up the phone to Captain Kirk and to Saquon Barkley to already arrange the deal before every other of our fan bases, the other 30 law-abiding fan bases and law-abiding teams, are operating things the right way, unlike those disgraceful Philadelphia Eagles and Atlanta Falcons.
Cheaters.
Oh.
Asterisk if they were to make the playoffs or win the Super Bowl.
Take
Asterisk,
away a first-round pick just like they did to Bill Belichick multiple times. Losers.
Jalen Hurts should be suspended for the entire season. The entire season.
Yes, and Kirk Cousins should never be allowed to go to Magic City. He should never get those lemon pepper Lou wings.
You know, this might be a conspiracy theory, but I think the reason why Fletcher Cox and Jason Kelce retired was because the NFL forced them into retirement because of this terrible scandal of tampering.
Conspiracy
I'm
theories.
just saying that I may or may not have heard from a birdie that Jason Kelce was forced into retirement because the NFL was so upset about the tampering.
So when you were taking a week off after the AFC and NFC title games, and you were very secretive on why you were off, I think I know what was going on. You were in a dark cave with Aaron Rodgers doing ayahuasca, potentially coming up with conspiracy theories.
I'm not going to lie. I'm on ayahuasca right now.
Are you?
Yeah. That's why I'm laughing at everything you're saying, because it's actually funny right now.
Jeez. All righty. Santa's on ayahuasca. All righty. I've never had a producer before on ayahuasca. How's the experience? It's fun?
I'll be honest. It makes the show a lot more entertaining.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We will take a break. When we come on back, talking about conspiracy theories. I didn't even know there could be conspiracy theories about what we're going to talk about next, which is absolutely disgusting. But Aaron Rodgers is saying that this conspiracy theory that he's being accused of is not true. Can Aaron Rodgers be the quarterback of the Jets? And can Aaron Rodgers potentially also be vice president or in the running to be vice president of the United States? What a doozy of a show this is today. You know what? Now I know that Santa actually is on ayahuasca, because the first 15 minutes of the show was nothing that we have planned, and the next 10 minutes of the show after this break is also not a planned segment. Santa right now is currently dancing around the studio. He looks like he is attending some Fish concert or something like that. Moist Mike. You want to see him, youtube.com/CBS Sports Radio. You know what you would probably be great at on the dance floor, Samter? You're probably good at doing the robot. Or have you ever done the shopping cart? Have you ever seen the shopping cart dance move?
Yeah, the shopping cart, the microwave I'm very good at as well. The
Microwave.
lawnmower, the sprinkler. I can do all those pretending to do something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Maybe we should put Samter up for hire to come to your wedding, bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, sweet 16, quinceañera, whatever you have to celebrate. And Samter could be the ball of fun to your party and just get the crowd going. It is the Zach Gelb Show. CBS Sports Radio. I don't know. What is that, the robot right now that you're doing? What is that?
Is it not obvious?
I don't know. That arm was just very limp of yours for a second. We're coming on back.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
All righty, how we doing? It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I think when you accuse someone of something, especially when it's a serious allegation, you need to be right. Like, there's a difference when we're talking about things in, like, the sports world, where you're, like, questioning a player's effort. But there is a difference in the bubble we are in when it comes to sports and then, like, real life things. And often, and sometimes, unfortunately, those two worlds intersect. Like, I like to keep with this show, for the most part, like 90% of the time, and I realize there's times that we got to go into another world pretty much. But I like to keep this show about sports. And usually I like to use this show as a distraction for people if they're going through a tough time or from real life issues, if they're positive, negative, whatever. You tune into this show. It's 3 hours of fun. We have a good time. We'll rant and rave about sports topics and whatever the big news of the sports world is. But there's been, like, the last few years, and it's not just the last few years, but there has been such a kind of just merging of sports and politics. So sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unintentional. I always think when we have to do these topics, they turn out to be a little bit uncomfortable. But if something's in the news that is controversial, we have to talk about it. Now, when we get to the Jets quarterback, or the Jets general manager, or the Jets president, however you want to describe him, Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers made a serious allegation, right, months ago, if you recall, about Jimmy Kimmel. And he was basically accusing him of being on this Epstein list. And not to beat around the bush, he was basically calling Jimmy Kimmel like a pedophile. Like, that's a serious allegation. And I understand why Jimmy Kimmel, whether you like him or not, it's irrelevant, would be so irate, because you could call people a lot of names. Like, if someone calls into the hotline and says, oh, Zach Gelb is like a fat jerk, or Zach Gelb is a loser, or Zach Gelb is an a-hole, like, I could survive. I have thick enough skin where I'll be okay. And, like, when someone online goes, what sports did this loser play? Or now anyone has a platform, any nerd has a platform, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'll be fine with your kind of weak shots that you take at me. But if someone, like, called in and said, Zach, you're a pedophile, or Zach, you're a misogynist, or like something like that, like, there's a line that you just don't cross. Like, back in the day, my dad worked for Don Imus. And Don Imus obviously would say a lot of offensive things on the radio. And my dad sold commercial spots for Don's radio show. And there were a lot of times where Don would attack my father on the air and would berate him and say not so nice things. My dad never gave a rat's ass besides one day when Don just said it. And this is what Don did back then. So, like, if you listen to it now, it's like, oh, well, why would you even make that accusation if it wasn't true? This is what Don just did. But one day Don said, like, Bob Gelb's a pedophile. And like that was the one day my dad actually went into Don's office and he's like, you could call me fat, you could call me this, you could call me that, you could say this about me, I beat up this person. He goes, you can't call me a pedophile. Because there's a certain line or there's a certain thing that's said about you where then if it's repeated and it's clearly not true, then it gets to a point where you just don't recover from something that's said, even if it was in a jovial context. So Rodgers threw that out there, and it was wrong, and it was stupid. But now it's getting thrown out there about Aaron Rodgers, not from the pedophile standpoint, but Aaron Rodgers, according to CNN, I guess once believed that Sandy Hook was a conspiracy theory, which that to me, let me just be abundantly clear about this. And I'm not saying Rodgers believes this. And there's some beliefs that Rodgers have that I think a lot of people question, and it's fair to question. I'm going to give Rodgers the benefit of the doubt here. And I'm going to say, regardless of what you think of Rodgers, he's not at the sleazebag level of saying Sandy Hook is a conspiracy theory. Like, there's a lot of things that you could accuse people of. There's a lot of things that you could name call people. But if you accuse someone or you say you have proof of someone saying that they believe in a conspiracy theory about children getting shot at school, and if you actually believe that that's a conspiracy theory and there's something more to that, you're a sleazebag, all right? And I could say a lot of different words on the radio, but I'm not going to because, we are on during the day, right? And there could be some children listening, and I don't want to offend anybody. So this gets out there, yesterday? And Rodgers responds to it. And say what you want about Rodgers. I don't love Aaron Rodgers. I don't hate Aaron Rodgers. I'm kind of indifferent to Aaron Rodgers. In the last year, there's been some things that Rodgers done that I've liked. And then there's been some things that he's done that I'm like, okay, I could do without Aaron Rodgers. So Rodgers responds to the CNN report, and he says, as I'm on the record saying in the past, what happened in Sandy Hook was an absolute tragedy. I am not and have never been of the opinion that the events did not take place. Again, I hope that we learn from this and other tragedies to identify the signs that will allow us to prevent unnecessary loss of life. My thoughts and prayers continue to remain with the families affected along with the entire Sandy Hook community. I'm going to believe Rodgers in that case. Maybe I shouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt, but I will, because there's also a clip when Sandy Hook happened where he was on an ESPN station in Milwaukee basically saying what he just said in this tweet all those years ago. So that's one thing. And I'm going to assume here, and sometimes you assume you know what happens, but I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt here, that as crazy as you may think Aaron Rodgers is from time to time, he's not at a level where he's going to believe that there's a conspiracy theory that actually happened at Sandy Hook. And if that is true, that he does believe that, he could screw off. And if you believe that there's a conspiracy theory with Sandy Hook, I don't need you listening to this show. You could bleep off as well. All righty? Now, I do find it interesting, though, Samter, because in the last week, there's been two stories out there about Rodgers. The one about the Sandy Hook conspiracy theory, which is so ridiculous, and he's vehemently denied. But the other story that's out there is that RFK Jr. is trying to tap Aaron Rodgers to be his vice president on the ticket for the election coming up, as RFK Jr. is going to run as an independent. I know there's some hurdles to, with signatures and things like that. That's way above my pay grade. But he is exploring Aaron Rodgers as his top choice for vice president. Now, he's not going to win. Whichever, not that I'm going to become a political expert here. This is not CNN. This is not Fox News. This is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I'm going to give you a hot take. Either Donald Trump or Joe Biden's going to win the election. It's not going to be RFK Jr. as your president and your vice president is Aaron Rodgers. But I do find it interesting, Samter, that there is a serious allegation out there about Rodgers over conspiracy, which immediately he said, this is not true, and I've been on the record before talking about this situation that did occur. But he still has not commented on the whole vice president thing. And I'm not saying that you need to comment on every little thing, but those are two big things in the news around the Jets quarterback. And it's not just like a traditional news station put it out there. Like even Adam Schefter, who is like the king of all NFL media for reporting and things, even put his own story out there or published whatever article that he took it from and wrote his own article about that. So this is now a story that is out there. And I do find it very interesting, Mike, that this one he so quickly says is not true, which is good. You know, it better not be true. If you want to hear a rant on this show, if this comes out that Rodgers actually believes this, I will obliterate him on the air, and it will be deserved. But the whole maybe being RFK Jr.'s VP, he has not denied that yet. So that leads me to believe that I don't know what behind-the-scene conversations are happening and what the process is and all that, once again, above my pay grade and above my level of understanding. But clearly Rodgers is entertaining the VP part of that, which now brings up the case. You got a football season rolling around come the fall. It's not as if you're still in Green Bay. You're in New York, and you know the New York media is going to eat this up. This now becomes a distraction. And you trade for Aaron Rodgers. It's basically like the Nets when they brought in Kevin Durant. They handed the entire franchise over to him. You know, when Kyrie gets here, they handed the entire franchise over to him. Whatever comes with that, as long as he's on your team, they've been all in. And it's not going to be one of those situations where, you know, Jerry Jones says you're all in, and then you have Skip Bayless tweeting my ass. Like, the Jets are all in on Aaron Rodgers. So you got to put up with this stuff when it does happen. But I would hope from Aaron Rodgers, and hey, you know, if I had a situation, regardless if you like the person or not that's running, if I had a situation where someone came to me and said, Zach, we want you to be the vice president of the United States, I would probably decline it because I'm not qualified, and I know I'm not qualified, just like how Rodgers isn't qualified.
I vote for you.
But
Gelb Samford 2024.
It is something that you have to entertain. Like, I'd be lying to you if let's say, and I do not know RFK Jr., right? I know nothing really about his beliefs, so I'm not making a political statement here. But if RFK Jr. called us up at 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227, and said, Zach, would you be interested in being my vice president? I would hear him out. I would probably decline because I don't want to step into that political wacko world. But it is something that you have to consider. So Rodgers is probably considering it, and we know he loves the attention. We know he is a drama whore. He will probably, I guess, take him up on it. But just in the last two stories that have come out about Rodgers, one he has denied, the other he is letting it marinate and letting it just still stay out there. And this becomes a story now of will Aaron Rodgers be able to be all in on the Jets and maybe be a part of trying to become the next vice president of this very fine country.
And you wonder if it's possible. I mean, you talk about campaigning, right? He has press conferences 2-3 times a week. He has the Pat McAfee show. He has post-game press conferences. Yeah. So, like, he's going to be in front of microphones constantly, just automatic.
State of the Union every week.
That's what I'm saying. He might not even have to go on the campaign trail. He's going to have national media around him at all times.
Well, here's the thing. Do you
twice
think
a week
Rodgers,
during practice.
Is he actually going on a campaign trail? Like, maybe he goes would he go to one? I could see Rodgers going to one debate. But this would be a thing where you open yourself up to more than just sports media, where then you start having all, like, the big media outlets requesting to go to Florham Park and go to Jets training camp and go to a Jets Tuesday or Wednesday practice in the season as he maybe just beats the Buffalo Bills, and then the next day he's trying to figure out how to become the VP of the USA.
Well, this is my point, though. Like, he might not have to go and campaign around the country. He'll have media coming to him. And plus, the Jets have 8 road games. So he basically will be campaigning around the country. He'll be in, Miami. He'll be
Minnesota,
wherever the Jets play, right? He's going to be in Buffalo. He's going to be on the road campaigning. So, like, the reality is, can he do the things that he has to do on the football field while also doing what he needs to do to run a campaign that likely will lose. But Rodgers has one, maybe 2 more years of being a quarterback. He has a lifetime after that.
Well,
I know he said 3 or 4 years.
He
but
said
whatever.
4 more years.
Yeah.
4 more years. Maybe he was onto something there.
4 more years or something else. But, like, even if it's 1 or 2 more years, even 3 years of football, he's got 30, 40 years of life after football, whether that's politics or ayahuasca or being a sage and a spiritual leader for people. Who knows? But you can tell this is a guy who got into Jeopardy. This is a guy who's done a lot of his own research. You can tell he wants to be able to impact people and the world in a bigger way than just being a football player. So yes, being a vice presidential candidate on a serious ticket won't win, but will actually get people talking is going to matter to him. And so at the end of the day, maybe that becomes more important to him than football.
Is this a serious ticket, though?
What?
Is this a serious ticket?
It's a ticket.
There's really only 2 serious tickets, and I don't even know if they're serious with Biden and Trump.
Listen, I don't want to get overly, into the history of politics, but there have been multiple third-party candidates who have lost but have made an impact. Nader, Ross Perot, my guy Teddy Roosevelt back in 1912 actually beat the Republican ticket of Howard Taft.
Wait. You're making a 1912 reference on this show?
I'm just saying, Teddy Roosevelt ran under the Bull Moose Party that he made on his own. He beat the Republican, his old vice president, Howard Taft, and Woodrow Wilson became the president. But Teddy Roosevelt in a third party came in second. Yeah. So I'm not saying that RFK wins.
1912.
He probably doesn't even come in second. But he's going to get probably at least enough attention that people are going to be talking about it, and therefore it's going to matter to Rodgers. And once you get that foot in the door of the political world, which seems like Rodgers is interested in, when you have 40 years of life potentially in politics versus 2 years in football left, maybe he makes that change. And if you're the Jets, right, you got Tyrod Taylor right now, right? You haven't traded Zach Wilson yet. You have the 10th pick. How does this impact the Jets?
Oh, stop.
The Jets have given Rodgers everything. So do the Jets say, you know what? Whatever you have to do, we'll still have you be our quarterback. Or do the Jets say, hey, if you want to do this, go for it, but you're not our quarterback in 2024. I don't know what's going to happen, but the Jets have literally given everything they can to Aaron Rodgers.
The Jets don't have the cojones to tell Rodgers not to pursue this.
That's my point. He's going to be their quarterback while he's campaigning. Yes, it's crazy.
But you can't – no one actually is taking this ticket seriously. And that's – he's never going to win, so – it's like there's people
don't
that
have to win to be taken seriously.
There is some situations where you could put all your effort into something and it could become a distraction, but it's not going to go anywhere. Well, say what you want about Woody Johnson. He's been a bad owner, but he's not a dummy. And Woody Johnson is going to be like, all right, let Aaron do what he wants. We know this ticket has no chance. He's not going to actually go on the campaign trail because of all the things that you just said. And he'll be there come week 1. And he'll be running out onto the field with the American flag, getting everyone fired up, and just hopefully he could stay healthy this year. But, man, it does make for a fun conversation and a wacky conversation. But Rodgers is letting it fester out there and continue to marinate, and he has not dismissed potentially being RFK Jr.'s VP. Oh, my goodness gracious. This is the most Jet story ever. Imagine if it actually would be Jet-like for him to win. And then I have to retire, and I'm not going to finish. Like, the Jets will be, I don't know. The election's in November, right? The Jets are on the verge of clinching a playoff spot, and then Rodgers wins, and he has to walk away as the Jets have a team primed and ready to go.
I'm just saying, here's this. The Jets are going to be in Buffalo, Miami, New England, Jacksonville, Tennessee, Arizona, San Francisco, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, right? Minnesota, right? Arizona, Florida. These are all swing states. These are all important. He's going to be able to be on the road campaigning while he's preparing for the Jaguars.
All righty. I've had enough of this conversation. Should people be concerned about Caleb Williams? One Bears legend is. He does not want him. We'll tell you who and why. That is next. Update time first. Here is Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save nearly $750 on average. Call or click today to find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. What a fast start or Houston, the top-ranked team in the nation, in the Big 12 quarterfinals with the first 14 points of the game as they lead the Horned Frogs a little more than 6 minutes gone by in the first half. 6th-ranked Arizona underway in the Pac-12 quarterfinal and leads USC by a score of 16-14 in the Big Ten. Wisconsin all over Maryland. The Badgers lead the Terps 61-26, and in the Big East at St. John's with a 47-40 lead over Seton Hall. The winner of that one moves on to face defending champ UConn, which defeated Xavier 87-60. North Carolina, an easy winner today over Florida State 92-67. Michigan State advancing in the Big Ten, defeating Minnesota 77-67. It was BYU falling to Texas Tech in the Big 12 81-67, while St. Joe's upended Richmond, the top seed in the A10 tournament, 66-61. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. Let's get into this Caleb Williams conversation, because I just think it's got to a point now where when people are criticizing Caleb Williams, you got to give like actual tangible things that people could latch onto when you're criticizing. Not saying that Jalen Johnson did so, but Devin Hester did. Let's listen up to the Bears cornerback Jalen Johnson, who was on the NFL Network, and he was asked about this whole dilemma with Justin Fields. Do you keep him? Do you trade him? Or do you find a way to have Caleb Williams as QB1 next year? Here's Jalen Johnson.
I definitely think it is a little tricky knowing that we have Justin and knowing that he has been a leader vocally, physically. He's been one of our hardest workers on the team. He stays after practice. He throws. I mean, just the things that we already know from Justin, I think it's easier for us to go out there and know that he's somebody who we can be confident that's going to fight, who's going to do everything they can to win us ball games. But I think bringing in somebody else that's new, that's young, like I said, I think that's it. You have to wait and see. I think that's the biggest thing. It kind of turns into a waiting game. You have to wait through camp, through preseason games, and what they're going to do and who they can be. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you got to wait to see when the guns get blazing and things get hot and you see them big boys on the other side rushing you. I mean, it's a lot to go into it. It's not college ball no more. So, I mean, I think Justin's one of those ones.
I think that's the perfect answer by Jalen Johnson. Like, DJ Moore, I think, has gone over the top. Which he's not being a bad teammate. He's being a great teammate, DJ Moore. But he has given so much effusive praise to Justin Fields. And, right, DJ Moore said that Justin Fields is better or is more polished than any of these other guys that are in the draft. And you put yourself in an awkward situation if you're DJ Moore when this decision isn't in your power. And if Ryan Poles does what most of us think he will do, and that's draft Caleb Williams, it's like, okay, how sensitive is Caleb Williams, or how many receipts is Caleb Williams taking of things that were said about him in the past? So I don't think Jalen Johnson said anything that was out of line there. He praised his guy, Justin Fields, and then said whoever comes in, if there is a new guy, then we got to see him prove himself basically to the team. And you find out a lot about someone when they get in their building because college is different than the NFL. I don't think Jalen Johnson said anything wrong there. I think he was very politically correct in the sports world, Jalen Johnson right there, playing the side of both Caleb Williams and then also the side of one Justin Fields. Let's get to Devin Hester, though, who just got announced that he's going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, going back to the Super Bowl. We all know he's a Bears legend. He was on the Up and Adams show with Kay Adams, and he was asked, Justin Fields or Caleb Williams. Listen up to this interesting response.
It's a lot of stuff going on with Caleb right now. And me as a GM, I don't want to badmouth anybody, but it's too much attention going on right now with your quarterback like that. It kind of similarly carried them out throughout their career.
What kind of things?
Things off the field. And I feel like the type of quarterback he is, Justin Fields is similar, but better with running the ball. But these two guys are similar. I mean, I don't feel like you should go out and draft the quarterback similar to what you already have.
I have a problem with how ambiguous Devin Hester was there. And sometimes you bring on a former athlete, you bring him on to the show, and I've done this before, right? Like you bring on a former athlete that's a legend in a franchise, you want them to comment on the team, you don't know how plugged in they still are with the team or how they're following it. It seemed like Devin Hester there has just been reading things online, and in the moment, he doesn't actually know what's being said is actually true about Caleb Williams. Because there are some concerns, and I say that in air quotes, about Caleb Williams. Like, if you think it's a concern that he reportedly wanted equity in the team, well, you knew that wasn't going to happen. You hear about, the whole painting the nails with the bleep Utah thing. I don't think that's a big deal. If you want to say it's a big deal that he jumped into his mom's arms and cried after a loss, all right, that's your priority. You're allowed to say that. I don't think you need to publicly show that, but I'm not going to slam him for doing that. But Kay Adams did a really good job there because she said, like, what? And it was a lot of humana from Devin Hester. And that's my one thing with this draft process. Sometimes the speculation turns out to be true in a positive or a negative way. And usually the speculation is negative in this process. But I would like a little bit more concrete evidence about the concerns with Caleb Williams before we basically say there's concerns, there's whispers that are out there, and that's why the Bears should keep Justin Fields, who is the lesser quarterback, because Justin Fields doesn't have the upside to the level of one Caleb Williams. He just doesn't. So I was at a point where in season there was a 3 or 4 week stretch where I was like, yep, Bears should trade the pick, get a bunch back, you keep Justin Fields, surround them with a lot of talent. But now as we inch closer and closer to the draft, I kind of look back at that take and I'm like, all right, it wasn't a bad take, but it's not a take that I still believe to be true today. I think what the Bears will do and what the Bears should do is you trade Justin Fields, whatever it is, you draft Caleb Williams, and you just hope he reaches his potential. But I'm not saying that the things that are speculated about Caleb Williams are totally not true. I just don't know enough about what's being speculated about him because people just talk about his team, people talk about him and all the drama and all the whispers and the hearsay. I would just like to hear a little bit more tangibly about what those things are. And sometimes in this process where you have a few whispers, they get exaggerated a little bit. I think what scares some people about Caleb Williams is kind of like what happened to Russ, is that Caleb Williams cares about being an icon. Caleb Williams cares about a lot of the off-the-field things, which you could care about both. But with Russ, he cared so much about the off-the-field things that it significantly hampered his on-the-field play and took away from his on-the-field play. So can you find a way to have off-the-field things, which every player does, and also not let it interfere with your on-the-play? From what I've heard so far about Caleb Williams, where some people may have an eyebrow raised about Caleb Williams, I don't think it's enough where people say, yeah, this guy's called a generational talent, and now all of a sudden because of the speculation and him jumping into his mom's arms or asking for equity of the Bears team, that's enough, or maybe not wanting to go to Chicago, that's enough for me to say, yeah, I'm not going to take him with the number 1 overall pick. But Caleb Williams, not to really investigate everyone's likes, but we'll do that anyway, he did like the clip from Devin Hester. So is that him putting a little more fuel to the fire, or is that him saying, yeah, I'm keeping that receipt and I'm going to prove Devin Hester wrong?
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
And away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Let's welcome in former NFL defensive lineman. Now you can listen to him for a while on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, along with our friend Sean Pendergast. And that, of course, is Seth Payne, kind enough to join us once again on the show. Seth, appreciate it as always. How you been, my man?
I'm good. It's been kind of crazy around here. The Texans free agency period started very, very, very slow. There was one signing while all the big names were going off the board. Lonnie Johnston came back to the Texans, and nobody knew what to make of it. And then all of a sudden, day two, it was just an absolute flurry. So it's been exciting. A little bit weird, but also exciting.
Yeah, so it's always funny whenever we bring you on. There was a 2 or 3 year stretch where every time we brought you on, it was just so negative. It was so ugly. It was so nasty with the Texans. And then that one draft last year changed the entire perception of the franchise, getting C.J. Stroud, getting Will Anderson Jr., and the Texans had a marvelous season this past year. And now there's like actually legitimate buzz and respect for what the Texans have been able to do.
Yeah, and I think that, it's always hard to say how much that's going to matter when it comes to free agency, because for the most part, the big name guys go where the money is. The first hint that we saw that things might be a lot different now in terms of recruiting players is that Danielle Hunter is from the Houston area. He's from Katy, Texas, went to high school here, and was home during the Texans playoff game versus the Browns. And then he talked about it in the press conference today. He kind of felt the energy and excitement. And as a guy that grew up in Houston and knows and has heard about DeMeco Ryans and obviously CJ Stroud, I think that the Texans were perhaps able to get him on a deal that maybe he wouldn't have done for somebody else. It's a 2-year deal. I mean, it's a boatload of guaranteed money. $48 million of the $49 million is guaranteed. However, I do feel like that glow between DeMeco Ryan, CJ Stroud, and everything else probably had a little something to do with Danielle Hunter being available.
It's weird to say it because he's been in the league since 2015 and he has 87.5 career sacks. But for some reason, the name Danielle Hunter just doesn't resonate nationally when we know how great of a player he is. It feels like this is the most underrated signing so far of the offseason period, even though like anyone that actually watches football knows the impact of a Danielle Hunter.
Right. And, the Vikings took on Jonathan Grenard, and I like Jonathan Grenard, but Grenard came from the Texans up there, and it almost ends up being like a swap of pass rushers. Jonathan Grenard has youth on his side, and I think he's got a whole lot of upside. But if you look at Danielle Hunter and where he is now and what he's done, each of his last 4 seasons when healthy, he's been pretty much like twice as effective as Jonathan Grenard in terms of QB pressures, sacks, everything else. He's that established, and he looks like he's still very much in his prime. That's where the 2-year contract was really intriguing to me, because I think Caserio, you talk about taking advantage of that window where you have your rookie quarterback on his rookie contract, or your quarterback on his rookie contract. The Texans have spent, at least as of this morning, about the 7th most money in the NFL, but they're right up in the top 2 or 3 when it comes to money paid in the first couple of years. So they've got these 2- and 3-year contracts. They're paying a lot of money up front, and without hopefully having the risk on the backside of some of these guys that are in their 30s, you're taking advantage of this window where CJ Stroud is so cheap.
We know the player Danielle Hunter is. We also know what Will Anderson can be, and he started to show that towards the end of the season. Bringing in a Danielle Hunter does what for an impact with Will Anderson?
I think, in terms of maturity or anything else like that, like Will Anderson is there. He doesn't need like some older guy to put his arm around him. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like not to say, so there is a lot for Will Anderson to learn, but he's certainly not one of these guys that needs to grow up a little or something. Like Danielle Hunter's he might get annoyed with Will Anderson and how much like Will Anderson asks questions of him and everything. Like Will Anderson he's a sponge. He just wants to take it all in. And the one big thing that Will figured out about midway through the season was how to finish on sacks, because he was winning pass rushes. He was getting double teamed a lot. He was getting pressures, but he wasn't getting the quarterback on the ground. And he really started to figure out exactly how to finish. If you look at Danielle Hunter, Danielle Hunter is really the opposite in a lot of ways of a guy that was here, Jadeveon Clowney, because Clowney would win a lot of pass rushes, but he has a hard time in those last 2 steps getting the quarterback on the ground. He's just kind of stiff when he gets there. Danielle Hunter's the opposite. Like he's Gumby when he gets to the quarterback, and he can like be blocking the pass lane with his right hand while like wrapping the quarterback with his left hand. And I think that's the kind of thing that Will Anderson really needs to focus on because he's such an excitable guy. Like, he's so hyper in a good way. But, man, when you get excited about sacking the quarterback, it's sometimes the worst thing in the world because you get there and, like, I missed a sack on Brett Favre once that it still haunts me to this very day because I got so excited and I just tried to gun at him as hard as I could, and he took a little sidestep and had like a 30-yard completion. Like, Will's had a couple like that, and I think being around Danielle Hunter is going to help him a lot.
Talking to Seth Payne right now. When we get to C.J. Stroud, I think already he's the 5th best quarterback in football. I look at the Texans going into this season as a Super Bowl contender. How far are you willing to go with C.J. and this group heading into this season?
This really all hinges on the running game to me. And, yeah, I know in the modern NFL it shouldn't matter that much, except that in this offense, they've been so effective with the play action. And you know, you don't have to run the ball effectively to set up the play action. You know, like, linebackers will still bite as long as you're committed to the run. And that's what the Texans did last year. They were committed to the run. And because of that, they got people to bite on the play action. But the problem was that too many times they were getting stuffed on 1st and 10 and 2nd and 10. So, yeah, the play action was working, except they were having to cover way too much ground to make up for the bad rushing attack. Joe Mixon hopefully should make a difference. You know, Devin Singletary did a great job in the second half of last season, but it was also the first season in which Devin Singletary had ever had more than 200 carries. And, you know, I don't think you can run Devin Singletary like that for an entire season, whereas Joe Mixon is built for that. You know, when he's been healthy, he's getting 200-plus carries in a season. And I think also as D'Amico starts to spread the ball maybe to the running backs more, Mixon just, I think, getting more reliable 3-down back than Singletary was. But Singletary did do a great job for us.
Talking to Seth Payne. So, C.J. Stroud, it's weird for a talk show host to usually say that someone had a flawless season because we always usually find like a thing or two that people could really chew on and criticize. But he was just so sensational. Using your defensive brain here, is there anything you see that maybe teams will catch up on with C.J. Stroud that they could, I don't want to say expose him, but maybe slow him down or have a sophomore slump in your number two?
You know, it's a really good question because you follow the rookie quarterbacks or young quarterbacks through all of that, and you kind of each step along the way figure out, okay, what are teams throwing at him, and when is he going to overcome this? You know, with Deshaun Watson, when he was here, the safety and corner blitzes were an issue for the first couple of years. Some of the disguise blitzes were an issue. And CJ saw that really around like the Jaguars game or maybe like week 3 or 4 of the season this year. He saw defenses start to try to really bait him as a rookie and show some of the disguised looks. They realized that they couldn't just be vanilla versus him. And he kind of just figured it out over the course of a few games. You know, early on, he was not throwing any interceptions whatsoever. And really, he had a long stretch of not taking sacks either. And it got to the point almost where he was so good at being careful and getting rid of the ball quickly that he self-adjusted and realized he had to be a little bit riskier sometimes. You know, he had to take chances with the football. He had to hold on to the ball a little bit longer. He started taking a few more sacks. But all of that's been really good. The ugliest performance of the season, you know, after he came back from his injury was the Baltimore Ravens game. And going back and watching that game, it really was all about interior pressure from the defensive line, from the Ravens, and there wasn't really a lot he could do standing in the pocket. So I think for him, a lot of the rudimentary stuff, or at least the base level stuff, he's figured out. I think the next step for him is, now that he's established himself, becoming that true taskmaster as a quarterback. You know, whether it's Tom Brady, Peyton Manning. I don't know if you heard Tyreek Hill telling the story about Pat Mahomes cussing out the whole team a few years ago. I think that's like, I hate to say that I hate to say that a quarterback has to cuss out his team ever, because I don't think you have to.
It's part of it though.
But yeah.
There's always a moment where you guys got to say, guys, let's get our bleep together. Let's go.
Right. No matter how you go about it, I think he was very, very careful about being deferential to veteran players last year. And, you know, he never lacked for confidence or anything, but he also knew that he had to earn people's respect.
Well, now he knows he's the man. Right, that's his franchise now. It's him on the offense side of the ball and Will Anderson on the defensive side of the ball.
Right, yeah. And I think that when it comes to like taking real, like not just ownership, I think he takes ownership of it already, but yeah, understanding that, Tom Brady, honestly, I think one of the best things Tom Brady did as a quarterback, because I've watched him, I got to watch him in practice a few times. Mm-hmm. He might have been the best receivers coach in the NFL. And, demanding so much attention to detail from those guys and knowing that they're going to adjust to passes and coverages and everything else the way he wants them to. I mean, that was half of the secret with him. The other stuff's the pre-snap recognition. So, and I think the biggest obstacle that CJ's overcome that some rookie quarterbacks don't is like he knows that there's things that he doesn't know, and he's wide open to learning them. And that's the fun part about watching him. There's stuff placed in front of him and he figures it out.
I don't know if Will Levis, as we're talking to Seth Payne, is going to be a successful starting quarterback, but I like what Tennessee has done the last two off seasons, getting DeAndre Hopkins. Even if you're overpaying for Calvin Ridley, you bring in Tony Pollard. They're putting enough around him to get a fair evaluation. How did you process the deal yesterday? Calvin Ridley, $92 million over 4 years, $50 million guaranteed, winding up in Tennessee.
I feel like that's kind of the proven strategy at this point, isn't it? At the very least, if you want to find out if a guy is viable, then give him a really good weapon. Now, Calvin Ridley is not A.J. Brown, ironically enough. He could have been thrown to A.J. Brown. He's not Tyreek Hill.
Vrabel still cursing out John Robinson over that one.
Yeah. But you've got to have some semblance of talent to throw to really figure out what you have in a guy. I think I'll say about watching Will Levis is that kid's like, he might be too gutsy for his own good, man. Like he took some hits playing the Texans that I got to hand it to him for getting up and keeping going. He got the first time they played this year, I think he got sacked 7 times. So like he's tough. And I think he shows a lot of courage standing in and making some of the throws he does. For him, a lot of it is going to be getting on the same page with Calvin Ridley. And I'm fascinated to watch that because in Jacksonville, you'd hear from different people that either Trevor Lawrence wasn't picking up things and he was a first-read quarterback, or that part of the problem was that Calvin Ridley and some of the other receivers weren't where they were supposed to be and they weren't on the same page. So I think you can almost start to figure out, all right, was it a Trevor Lawrence problem or was it a Calvin Ridley problem? And not that he was awful in Jacksonville or anything, but he'll be working with another young quarterback now and see if he can be more of a balm for him than he was for Trevor Lawrence.
Do you think the concerns last year with Jacksonville, them regressing, will carry over into this year? Or do you see them turning around and getting back to where they were in the first year of Doug Peterson being their head coach?
The thing that I'm trying to figure out, there's two things. One is, all right, I don't know if Gabe Davis is the guy that's the guy. I think he would have been a nice compliment to Calvin Ridley. So we'll see exactly how Gabe Davis is incorporated into it. And then the other side of it with Trevor Lawrence was, I mean, he was just banged up like the entire season. Even when the Jaguars caught him the second time around, he looked like he was healthy for the first time. He was moving around a lot more, and it was a much more effective Trevor Lawrence. And then he had like 2 more big injuries after that. So I think with some of the setback there, it might be as simple as Trevor Lawrence was banged up. And, obviously quarterbacks can't be using that as an excuse always and forever. But it might have been a valid excuse last year.
If you had the first pick tomorrow in the draft, let's just say, and the 2 options were CJ Stroud or Trevor Lawrence, which one would you take?
Oh, well, CJ Stroud. I'm biased, but that's also kind of easy right now. The thing I wonder about with Trevor Lawrence is, he doesn't. Everything looks like a little bit like methodical, almost too methodical sometimes, because he's a long-limbed guy, and I think sometimes for somebody like that, where you can't quite just snap it at will, that you got to really be nails with everything else, because he's going to have to be predetermined a little bit and make his decisions that much faster. So sometimes with somebody like that, the learning curve is also going to be a little bit longer. It's not that he's not smart or anything, but he also, he came out of a Clemson offense that's incredibly simplistic compared to like an Ohio State offense. So what CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or a lot of these other guys have done in college, it's just way more advanced than what you saw with Trevor Lawrence. And then Trevor Lawrence basically, didn't get any advancement or any real tutelage in his rookie year either. So I feel like he's a little bit behind the curve for reasons that aren't necessarily his own fault. But I've seen too much of the really good Trevor Lawrence to think that somehow there's not that potential in him to be an upper echelon guy.
Last thing I'll ask you. I kind of unintentionally went viral yesterday because
did you?
Yeah, it regards the Texans too.
Oh, that's right. No, I know this. Yes.
Oh, you do?
Yes. Tell me.
So I was sitting here and I'm like, it's weird that Justin Jefferson doesn't have the contract. It's either because they're not seeing eye to eye with the contract and what he's worth, or he's waiting to see what the quarterback is. And I said I would set a deadline if I'm Justin Jefferson. And if you don't get the deal done, then I would request a trade to the Houston Texans. I didn't think it was polarizing, but from a lot of Texans fans, it's been split, where some say, yeah, you got to do it. Others say, oh, no, you can't give up all those draft capital, then give him a contract like that. I was surprised on the back end of that from Texans fans.
Okay. I mean, the idea is so enticing to be just like super loaded when you have you've got both you'd have a Tank Dell, you'd have Nico Collins, and then Justin Jefferson.
You guys went from the outhouse to the penthouse now. I'm saying Justin Jefferson should go to the Texans. It shows you how good of a spot they're in moving forward.
I think so for one, you'd change as a team. You'd end up being like a 3 wide receiver team all the time. Some of the rushing issues and concerns wouldn't be as much of a concern as they were this year because you could just run from spread all the time. So I'm intrigued by that. I do think that one thing about last season is that I've really had to fight from getting ahead of myself and thinking like the same mistake that I think a lot of us made with the Jaguars last year.
Fair.
Was like, oh, wow, look at the Jaguars made this push at the end of the season, make the playoffs. Like
Super Bowl contender.
Just extrapolate it right up into Super Bowl contender. And then they ended up taking a step back. Like the Texans still have holes at spots and they still have to fix this running game. And there's too many, like this is not a situation yet where I think you can just trade for a cherry on top to really push you through to becoming a Super Bowl contender. I think it's very much still a work in progress, and they've got a tougher schedule this year. So, and then the other part is, obviously Justin Jefferson doesn't have total control in who he gets traded to, but with a guy like that, usually teams don't want to trade for him unless he wants to come here. I don't know if Justin Jefferson, even though he might he'd get the huge contract and everything, like does any receiver really want to go to a place where there's already an established 1 and 2 and potentially take away targets from you? Because he had Adam Thielen opposite of him, but it wasn't Adam Thielen in his prime. Like what KJ Osborne was like the third option at receiver a couple years ago when he was so prolific. So I just wonder if
well, how high are people on Nico Collins? Because I've always been a fan of Nico Collins. He took a big step this year. But if you get Justin Jefferson, clearly Jefferson's still the 1 and Nico Collins is the 2. And it's a strong 2.
Yeah, and Nico Collins also, he'd be coming up on the last year of his contract too. So if you got Justin Jefferson,
Collins probably out. Into it.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson can stick around. Collins could go get paid elsewhere. Right. I mean, there's just so few people that are, no, I can't. Look. Their big splurge was with Will Anderson. The Will Anderson trade was like a gutsy, ballsy. Like they spent way too much for Will Anderson. And it worked out. Yeah. Like take that. Take your money. Just take your $500,000 on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and call it a day. Like that's good enough. We don't need to double down on like another extreme risk while also because you got to remember too, the Texans had a surplus of draft picks because of the Deshaun Watson trade. Where now we're sitting with like normal people with a normal amount of draft picks. So I got the price is too steep, conceivably for me.
Wow, how about that? He is Seth Payne. You can listen to him mornings on Sports Radio 610 in Houston, along with Sean Pendergast. Seth, appreciate the time as always.
Yeah, I just turned my nose up to Justin Jefferson. Now I got to go think about this. I'm going to go drink.
Go take a bath, all right? Clean yourself off after that ridiculous take. There he is, Seth Payne, joining us on CBS Sports Radio. Always love when he joins us. It's amazing how many people in H-Town have been kind of pushing back at my take. I'm trying to give you Justin Jefferson. I don't think even if they're in a good position, I don't think you're in a position if you're a Texans fan to say no to that. It's almost like Texans fans are afraid to really be going all in. Are you all in? Or are you Skip Bayless all in, my ass? It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
breaking news on the Zach Gelb Show.
And this portion of the show is sponsored by the new Hyundai Tucson, available with complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Now it's easy to use your phone to control your Tucson. All righty. Adam Schefter, another quarterback trade. The Washington Commanders are sending last year's starter Sam Howell to the Seattle Seahawks in a pick swap per sources. The Seahawks will receive Howell and a 4th-round pick, 102 overall, and a 6th-round pick, 179 overall. And the Commanders receive a 3rd-round pick at number 78 overall and a 5th-round pick of 152 overall. So there is the breaking news. I have 2 reactions to this. Another one bites the dust for Justin Fields, because I threw out there yesterday maybe a dark horse candidate for Justin Fields would be the Seattle Seahawks. You have DK Metcalf, you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have Tyler Lockett on a renegotiated deal, and you still have Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. If Geno Smith isn't the guy, or if he shows this season that there's a downward stretch or a downward run, or even if he gets hurt, that's a prime opportunity for one Justin Fields to step in and take over. But now you could cross them off, because even though you're swapping a 3rd and a 4th and a 5th and a 6th, that's still pretty sizable in the nerdy NFL draft world. For the Seahawks to be parting ways with a 3rd and a 5th, even though they're getting back a 4th and a 6th, it's still somewhat sizable for just a backup quarterback. So what the Seahawks are telling you is that we'd rather go out there and trade for Sam Howell than trade for Justin Fields to be that maybe next guy or be the QB2 behind Geno Smith for the insurance if it doesn't work out. So you could cross the Seahawks off the board for Justin Fields. And I think now what it comes down to is that it's really the Raiders or bust for Justin Fields. If we're looking for a road to potentially start or even potentially play this year, the Raiders are really only the last team standing. And you go to the Raiders, all right, you're a shoo-in to be the starting quarterback next year. Gardner Minshew isn't starting over Justin Fields. Aiden O'Connell isn't starting over Justin Fields. Now you have that whole relationship and the uncertainty of where that relationship is with Luke Getsy and Justin Fields. I still think it's the best course of action, though, for the Raiders to give what? If Sam Howell's going for a 3 and a 5, and the Seahawks ended up getting a 4 and a 6 with that for having to give up a 3rd and a 5 plus Howell, Justin Fields ain't going for a 2. The only way Justin Fields is going for a 2nd-round pick, and maybe this behooves the Bears to approach it this way, you hold on to him and you wait for the summer for someone to go down like what happened with Teddy Bridgewater all those years ago, where then the Vikings ended up giving a 1st-round pick for Sam Bradford, which is still a wild statement to say. Or you wait until the season happens and look at the litany of injuries that we had last year. There were so many quarterbacks that were injured last year. And the price could go up for Fields because it's right now in the toilet, it feels like. The price could go up for Fields and you could get something of value back for him when there is more of a demand than need for him. Samter, it's kind of funny now looking back at it because there was a big push in November, and I was a part of it, where it was okay, maybe it does make sense to keep Justin Fields and you trade the number 1 pick. And even last week, RG3 was on this show, and he was saying the Bears should keep Fields and trade the number 1 pick. Eric Eager, he was on this show, said that 2 weeks ago. That's been a popular take still from a lot of people. But maybe how we evaluate Justin Fields and his potential, it's not maybe. It's definitely different than how the NFL evaluates him. Because we really are only, let's say 2 or 3 days into this offseason free agency trade cycle where things really do pick up, with Monday with the legal tampering window that does open, and now Wednesday with the new league year starts. And look how many teams have already made moves for potentially being their starter that were in play for Justin Fields, or even the backup option now. This is a scenario, like Indy was thrown out there maybe for Justin Fields to be a backup, but the Anthony Richardson uncertainty. Joe Flacco signs there. So this is now a scenario and a situation like the Cardinals, if maybe they were in play to be a backup for Justin Fields. They made a move today to trade for Desmond Ridder. All these other teams are making moves not only to solidify their number one quarterback position, there's only a handful of teams that may have been interested in Fields for number one, but even now they're number two. And like you look at the Commanders, they're going to draft the quarterback second overall. They brought in Marcus Mariota. Like Fields couldn't even be the backup right now for the Commanders. Don't get me wrong, I'd rather have Fields than Mariota, but they've already made the move to bring in Marcus Mariota. So the longer this goes on, and it hasn't even been open for that long of a time, the NFL is telling you the potential that a lot of us are selling you on what Justin Fields can be. A lot of the talent evaluators don't see the potential and the upside that most of us do see. It's kind of a wild scenario here.
And for the Bears' standpoint, I wonder if, we've talked, like you said, we talked about potentially keeping Fields versus Caleb. I wonder if it's more about Caleb Williams being that enticing or them just giving up on Fields. I'm assuming after the reaction we're seeing around the league from all these teams that it's probably more the latter. That, yes, it's probably excitement about Caleb Williams, but it seems like nobody is sold on Justin Fields. Maybe the asking price is too high, right? If you can get Sam Howell for a 4th or 5th round pick. Desmond Ridder went to the Cardinals, and the Cardinals sent over Rondale Moore, who was a 2nd round draft pick a couple years ago as well. So it seems like maybe the asking price is too high.
The Commanders just got rid of Sam Howell. And the Seahawks ended up getting Sam Howell, a 4th round pick and a 6th round pick. The Commanders got back a 3rd and a 5th. So, just a 2 straight up by that isn't going to be for Justin Fields. The Seahawks could have used Justin Fields. And they just said, okay, we'd rather have Howell get a 4th and a 6th and give up a 3rd and a 5th. So, right now, I would say, if the Bears are asking for a 2nd for Fields, I don't think you're getting a 2nd. I think right now you start with it being a 3, and maybe there's some conditions on it. But right now, Justin Fields is not getting traded where we currently sit for anything better than a 3rd round pick. And still then right now, that may be too rich because, let's say the Raiders want him. And the Raiders say, okay, we're going to be fine giving you a 3rd round pick. Who else is interested right now? Maybe you could get him for a 4th round pick. And then that conversation turns into, is it better to just keep him on the roster and store him on the roster and be your backup in case Williams gets hurt or somebody else gets hurt, where then there's more of a demand? Because there's not a demand right now for Justin Fields to be a starting quarterback in this league. And the only team that I could see maybe there's a demand is for the Raiders. But outside of that, who else is bringing him in to start? I'll go through all the teams right now. Bills aren't. Dolphins aren't. The Jets aren't. Maybe the Patriots, but I got to think they're drafting a quarterback at 3, so you probably eliminate that. And they just brought in Jacoby Brissett, so I don't think they're in for Justin Fields now. Ravens, no. Browns, no. Steelers, no. Bengals, no. Texans, Jaguars, Colts, no. Tennessee's going with Will Levis. Kansas City, obviously, no. Raiders, potentially. Broncos, maybe in play. The Broncos right now, they don't really have a quarterback. Chargers, no. Cowboys, no. Eagles, no. Giants, I guess potentially. But I think they're going to get a quarterback in the draft. And they just signed Drew Lock the other day. Commanders, no. Lions, no. Green Bay, no. Minnesota, still an option. But they just brought in Sam Darnold. I think they're going to make a move in the draft. Tampa, no. Saints, no. Falcons, no. Panthers, no. And the NFC West, it's a no. You go through this right now. If you want to do, even being generous to Fields, teams that we could see in play to maybe start for this upcoming season, it's Minnesota if they can't get a quarterback. The Giants if they can't get a quarterback in the draft. The Raiders if they can't get a quarterback in the draft. the Patriots if they don't take a quarterback in the draft. And even then, so I still think they're starting Jacoby Brissett. Those are 4 teams. And I had to stretch to get to 4 teams. This really feels like it's the Raiders or it's QB2 somewhere else or you're staying in Chicago until somebody gets hurt. And it's stunning how active of a conversation that's been and how the NFL teams don't want to jump and bite at the opportunity to go try to save Justin Fields' career. He's not getting the earliest he will get traded is after the first round to see how those dominoes fall. And I don't know how many teams are going to be active. And this market, it is dead. It is silent right now. And we're trying to reach. We have to reach to try to make a market for Justin Fields. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227 is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. We'll update you some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio when we return with the news brief. But first up, with the latest CBS Sports Radio update, here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, Conference Championship Week is in full swing, and in the Big 12, it has been no match for Houston right now. The top-ranked Cougars lead TCU 31-15 after starting the game on a 14-0 run, and they are handling the Horned Frogs easily right now as they have the big lead. Also right now in the second half, Arizona in front of USC by a score of 44-26 at Madison Square Garden. St. John's trying to make a case for a seed in the tournament. Right now, leading Seton Hall late 85-72. The winner will take on UConn, which won earlier today 87-60. North Carolina, an easy winner over Florida State, 92-67. In the Big Ten, Wisconsin routed Maryland 84-56, and Michigan State advanced with a win. Also today in the Big 12 was Texas Tech over BYU big, 81-67. And St. Joe's upended Richmond in the A-10 tournament. The Spiders were the top seed, 66-61. A couple of quarterbacks on the move. Sam Howell reportedly headed to the Seahawks, while the Falcons have dealt Desmond Ridder to the Cardinals for Rondale Moore. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, it's Amy Lawrence. Be sure to listen to CBS Sports Radio at home. Just ask Alexa to play CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. Let's start it out with Cam Newton, who is on his own 4th and 1 podcast, and he commented on the Kirk Cousins lucrative contract.
He only had one playoff win.
I was going to ask you, what are you playing the game for?
In 12 years. Man, he's been breaking the bank. But it's like a safe pick. I feel like Atlanta Falcons was trying to go find a Matt Ryan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
they were trying to scratch that itch.
I think he's good enough to put them in position to win. Okay. So it ain't just like it's a trash acquisition. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of them situations. Now, he's coming off of a Achilles. I can't make it about me. But if I were to make it about me, it's like, yo, I had Lance Frank injury. Not as bad as an Achilles injury. Yeah. But damn, who is your agent?
Here's where I struggle with Cam. I think his analysis about Kirk isn't wrong. When he says it's a safe move and he's a good quarterback. But when he makes it about himself, and he talks about his injuries and then how teams didn't want to give him a shot, he's basically like saying, yeah, I could still be better the way that I take this than what Kirk would be in Atlanta. And weren't the Falcons the one team he threw out there where he's like, oh, I would still want to play for them, or I would still play for them a few weeks ago? So I don't think, Samter, that Cam is in a part yet where he can accept that he's not going to be playing football anymore. And I'm not saying that, like, yeah, you should be overly excited about $108 million to Kirk Cousins, but I think it was the best option that was out there for the Atlanta Falcons. You pay what the market is. But I bet you if you ask Cam, who gives the Falcons a better chance to win? Is it Kirk Cousins or is it Cam? He would say that it's himself. And that, to me, is laughable in the year of 2024. Like, if this was 2010, this was 2011, yeah, it's not even a conversation. But also, did you take that at all as, like, a dig at Matt Ryan? When he was like, they were trying to find their next Matt Ryan. Like, was that a slight? Because Matt Ryan won an MVP, got to a Super Bowl, lost a Super Bowl. Cam won an MVP, got to a Super Bowl, lost to a Super Bowl. So they're two totally different players. But it kind of felt like that was a little shade at Matt Ryan, too.
I'll be honest, I heard it. I didn't hear shade at Matt Ryan, not to go this whatever, but Cam likes to bring out different kinds of theories. Mm-hmm. And to me, it almost sounded like it was a...
Why didn't they pick me? That was the energy I felt.
I don't want to be that guy because I'm not normally that guy. It sounded racial to me. They wanted like their safe white quarterback. Is kind of how it sounded to me. It was like, I
didn't even think about it that way.
They just wanted their Matt Ryan. You know what I mean? Uh-huh. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, they were kind of like nodding, and there was something there more than just Matt. I don't think it had anything to do with Matt Ryan or Kirk Cousins. There was something there that he was implying, and that's what I think he was implying. But there may have been something else that I'm missing.
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. Like,
I didn't take it that way, but you're entitled to that opinion.
At the end of the day, man, like you said, forget about 2010, but even like 3 or 4 years ago, like maybe a year or two removed from the Patriots, when he was like, listen, I can still play. Fine. Dude, you've been out of the league for like 3 or 4 years. Nobody wants you. You sucked when you were here. Give it up. Now it's getting sad. Before it was like he's confident. Good for you. He thinks he can still play. Now it's sad. Now it's pathetic. Dude, shut up. You're not getting back into the league. You're not playing. Kirk Cousins is better than you, and it's not even a question.
Yeah, right now, like career-wise, from an individual apex, Cam was better at, in a few seasons than Kirk was.
Yes, but his apex was much shorter.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, Cam had the MVP. Cam had the Super Bowl loss.
15-1.
Kirk Cousins hasn't done any of that stuff, but Kirk Cousins, over his career, has been a better quarterback than Cam Newton, and especially right now.
Wait, over the course of his career, so define what you mean by that. You're saying the longevity?
Longevity and just consistently year in year out.
Longevity, he's been good. He's never been great like Cam was.
If you were a GM and you could choose the career of Cam Newton or the career of Kirk Cousins, I would probably go with the career of Kirk Cousins because it's longer.
I would go Cam. You want to know why? The reason why I would go Cam is because at least I got to a Super Bowl. At least I was able to be a 15-1 team and get to a Super Bowl. I get what you're saying, but to wrap this up and then move on to the next one, I was a big fan of Cam. I still am. I have a Cam t-shirt. Like, I was kind of fired up when Cam joined the Patriots. But then I watched Cam play. Cam stunk with the Patriots. He was outside of the Seattle game. He stunk with the Patriots. Anyway, let's move it on. Let's go to Kirk Cousins on why he chose the Atlanta Falcons.
In Minnesota, it was trending over the last couple off seasons to be in somewhat year to year. And as we talked with Atlanta, it felt like this was a place where, if I play at the level I expect to play, that I can retire a Falcon. And that was something that really excited me, and that's certainly the goal. And you got to earn the right to do that, but that was exciting to feel like I could get that opportunity here.
All righty, let's move it to Saquon Barkley. You have the Falcons are getting investigated for tampering with Kirk Cousins. The Eagles are getting investigated for tampering with Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley on his former college coach James Franklin's comments that led to the whole tampering investigation.
Coach Franklin, I think he kind of misinterpreted. The truth was the sell pitch to Penn State, how many Penn State fans are Philadelphia Eagles fans, but that was through my agent, and my agent told me that. So, it happens, and I'm let the Philly on that.
So in this stupid rules that are out there, in that legal tampering period, the player, unless he represents himself, can't talk directly to the team. The agent can only talk to the executives that are pursuing the client. I don't like the rule. I have no problem with this. And maybe there will be a punitive action, but I don't think there should be one. Let's go to Greg Williams, the former defensive coordinator of the Cleveland Browns, the former interim head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He was all fired up over Baker Mayfield getting his money with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This was on the Come Get Some show. And Greg Williams made a big, bold claim about his time in Cleveland and what would have happened if they kept Baker and him together.
I'm so happy. He's one of my all-time favorites. I believed with all my heart we could have won a championship with him had I stayed at Cleveland instead of heading out. And I'm so proud of how he has proven himself time after time after time, from high school to college to the NFL, and now within the NFL. Hey, come get some, Bake. I'm very happy for him.
Does anyone believe that Baker Mayfield, with Greg Williams and the Cleveland Browns, could have delivered that franchise a world championship? Let's just go around the room real quickly to kind of appease myself here. Stu?
No.
Samter?
100% champions all the way, raising the Lombardi Trophy.
All right, serious Samter, not trolling Samter?
No, come on. Listen, I love Baker, but he's not a Super Bowl quarterback.
They could have been a consistent playoff team because in that, I think it was the 2020 season, they made the playoffs, and then, Greg Williams wasn't there, and then the following year he gets hurt, and it was, okay, how much of it was the injury? How much of it was the, Baker just not being that good? Then they get rid of him. They bring in Deshaun Watson. The rest is history. I think if they would have kept Greg Williams as the head coach, there would have been some good moments. There would have been some bad moments. If you kept Baker as the quarterback, would have been some good moments, could have been bad moments, but they could have consistently been like a 10-win team, let's just say. All righty, let's go to Eric DeCosta, the GM of the Baltimore Ravens. So Jason La Canfora, the longtime NFL reporter, now has a talk show, Afternoon Drive, in the Baltimore area. He was saying that the Ravens already had conversations with the 49ers about a potential Deebo Samuel trade. Most of the time with the 49ers, the conversation has been maybe a Brandon Ayuk trade. But here was Eric DeCosta, I guess it was at the Derrick Henry introductory press conference, getting asked about the JLC report about him reportedly having a conversation with the 49ers about a Deebo trade.
Is there anything on the receiver front? I mean, there's a report you may be looking for Deebo Samuel or another veteran. Can you comment on where you're at there?
Yeah, I think, that specific report was probably, I read the Lorax last week at a local elementary school, and I would probably put that report similar to that.
So that's a big time confirmation that it did not happen. I think if there was any truth to that, I think he would just simply say, I can't talk about players that are under contract with other teams. But since he went to the Lorax quote, that's just making fun of the report from someone that I like in Jason La Canfora. What's the best childhood book, by the way, Samter? I know that you have a 14-month-old, so what have you been reading?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about my favorite childhood, it's Green Eggs and Ham by far. But if we're talking about her, it's, Guess How Much I Love You, which is a book about...
Your wife probably reads that, not you,
little
right?
nut brown hair, and I love you to the moon and back. And you've heard the phrase, I love you to the moon and back. It originated from this children's book. So we've been reading it to her since the day she was born.
When I was a baby, or my mom told me when I was a youngster, I always liked Goodnight Moon. So I was so fired up to read Goodnight Moon to my niece. And I read the book Goodnight Moon to my niece. And then I quickly closed the book and said, wow, that book sucks. It was overrated. How did I enjoy that as a kid? Also, if you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk, is also a very good book. But yeah, I used to be a fan of Goodnight Moon. But now I'm starting to think that Goodnight Moon is overrated. Goodnight Moon may be like Justin Fields of quarterbacks. At one point, you thought it was really damn good and special. But then as time goes on, you're like, just not that dude. Not that book. All right, he's Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Alrighty, hour number 3 of our radio program. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. Now, we're going to play a little NFL music. Stu and Samter have compiled the list of some teams with how NFL free agency has already started and some of the big moves have made. How does it alter, with the additions or subtractions that those teams have had, my expectations for those squads? Stu, take it away.
The Baltimore Ravens.
My expectation for the Baltimore Ravens heading into this upcoming season, Super Bowl or bust. You made it to an AFC title game last year. Your offense didn't show up. Now you have year number 2 of Zay Flowers. You have Lamar Jackson, who's a 2-time MVP. You just added Derrick Henry. You probably need another pass-catching option. Maybe you explore that once again in the draft. You have Mark Andrews. Hopefully he stays healthy this year. And sure, on defense, you lost to Patrick Queen. But this is a team that when you're playing football for the next 3 years or so, it's Super Bowl or bust. Because now you have proven you could get to an AFC title game. Now you got to show up in that AFC title game and then move the ball over the pylon in the goal line in the Super Bowl. Because now, regardless of what you do in the regular season, I don't care if you're the number 1 seed again, people are going to look at you and they're going to say, okay, that's fine, but can you get the job done in the big moment? Because last year, it was the easiest road to a Super Bowl. Win 2 games in your backyard, you go to the Super Bowl. Kansas City's offense didn't even show up in that AFC title game, and you still couldn't get the job done. So Super Bowl or bust for the Ravens.
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's kind of sad what the Steelers have become. They haven't won a playoff game since 2016. That's a long time ago. And it used to be for the standard for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Super Bowl or bust. You win the Super Bowl, success. You don't, failure of a season. But now it's just making the playoffs. And if I had to give you the absolute high point for the Steelers this upcoming season, it would be winning a playoff game. But anything more than that, I think you're a delusional, terrible towel fan. Yeah, this defense is great when they stay healthy. TJ Watt, we know, is the best defensive player in football. Or I think he is. Alex Highsmith is a stud. On offense, you just got rid of Deontay Johnson, but you still have George Pickens. You have the two-headed attack of Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren. And Russell Wilson will be the day 1 starting quarterback, and he's an upgrade from Kenny Pickett. And you have a good coach here, Mike Tomlin. But the standard for the Steelers now isn't, yeah, let's go win a 7th Lombardi. Let's go get another Lombardi trophy. Hasn't been that way for a while. It's okay. Be a tough, gritty team. Make the playoffs, and then you hope to win a playoff game. But once again, that's something they haven't done since 2016. So I guess the high point expectation, win a damn playoff game.
The Philadelphia Eagles.
Super Bowl. That's the expectation for the Eagles. You look at that team, you add Saquon Barkley. You already have Jalen Hurts, who has to have a bounce-back season. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. That's a team on offense. They are loaded. Even with after losing Jason Kelce, that line is still loaded with Pro Bowlers. Defensively, there's some concerns. I don't like that secondary, but you bring back C.J. Gardner-Johnson. And then on the defensive side of the ball, you also got Bryce Huff coming in. It feels like Hassan Reddick will stay there, and they'll trade away Josh Sweat. There's enough there in Philadelphia in an NFC where it's the Niners are the strong team, and then everyone else is fighting to contend with the Niners. We know that the Eagles can still be that team. I have questions about the coach, but they have a loaded roster and a talented roster, and you once again throw them in the Super Bowl or bust hopper.
The Green Bay Packers.
It's a good one. NFC Championship game. I think the Packers showed you what they could be in the last few weeks of the season. They took advantage of a Cowboys team that does not know how to show up in a big moment, but they took it to them in their own building. And now you look at Green Bay, it's year number 2 of Jordan Love as a starter. You bring in Josh Jacobs, which I think makes them slightly better than having Aaron Jones. I have to see Christian Watson stay healthy. I need to see more consistency out of Romeo Doubs. You bring in a new defensive coordinator, but you were a team last year that overachieved, right? It wasn't crazy to be a playoff team, but no one thought the Packers were going to be in the second round of the playoffs, and they choked away that game up against the Niners. But now it's about taking that next step and getting to an NFC title game. I'm not saying they should win the division, because you still give the edge to the Detroit Lions, but they can win the division. I would still give the edge to Detroit. But I think it's safe to say for a team that went to the playoffs and won a playoff game last year, now it's about winning 2 playoff games and being in an NFC championship game.
The Atlanta Falcons.
Win the division and win a playoff game. I think they could do more than that, but I think that's the fair expectation for the Atlanta Falcons. And Kyle Pitts, I think, is going to have a big turnaround. Bijan Robinson is going to have the season that we all expected him to have last year. Tyler Algier will still be effective. Drake London going to be really good. They bring in Stu's favorite player, Darnell Mooney. And they also got Rondell Moore today in a trade too. So they're taking some flyers and putting more offensive bodies on that side of the ball that have some potential. So I look at that team bringing in Captain Kirk. Even though he's coming off the injury, they should win that division. If they don't win that division, they're the Saints of really last year. A team that everyone's saying will win the division, they didn't win the division. But I do believe Atlanta wins a division, and they should be able to win a home playoff game. That would be my expectation for the Falcons.
The Tennessee Titans.
I would say if they are an 8-9 football team, I'd be happy with Tennessee. The big thing for Tennessee is kind of like where we were at with Green Bay last year. Now, Green Bay overachieved. But what I said about the Packers heading into last season was, I don't care really what their record is. I just want to be able to, at the end of the season, walk away thinking that Will Levis could or is the guy. With the Green Bay Packers, you walked away at the end of last season saying Jordan Love is the guy. For Will Levis, you're in a young quarterback division with C.J. Stroud, Trevor Lawrence, and Anthony Richardson. A lot of people are doubting you. You got humiliated at the draft. You fell out of the first round, and then you ended up going in the second round to Tennessee. But Tennessee has put you in a position to succeed this year with Brian Callahan, an offensive-minded head coach, even though I think Vrabel should still be there. But now you have DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tony Pollard. That's enough to evaluate what Will Levis can be. At the end of the season, my expectation is just for Tennessee, say that you have your franchise quarterback in Will Levis.
The Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, boy. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. Can I even have an expectation for the Dallas Cowboys? Like, I would just say win your division. And outside of that, I have no more expectations for you. I don't even think you're going to win your division this year. There's been no, repeat NFC East champion, I think, since 2004 or something like that when the Eagles did it. But why should I expect even the Cowboys to win the NFC East? You know, it's kind of crazy, Samter. You know me. I'm never at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words for the drama Dallas choking Cowboys. Because what expectations should I have? Oh, they'll be a double-digit win team? You know, I have my expectation. They'll be a double-digit win team. They'll finish second in the division. And then the wild card weekend, they'll get blown out or they'll lose a game in heartbreaking fashion. Right? Like, wouldn't I be a dummy to expect anything else from a team that has had a good roster the last few years, has had a good record, and they've had opportunities to win playoff games, and they have one playoff win in the last 3 years, and the one playoff win was to an 8-9 football team. So I can't expect this team to actually do more than what they've been doing the last 3 years.
I mean, with the moves that they made in free agency, how could you not? I mean, they've been all over the place, all in. Signing after signing after signing after signing. You know, here's the weird thing also. Jerry Jones said that not having Dak signed yet doesn't impact how much money they're going to try to spend and what they're going to try to do in free agency.
That's a lie.
They've done nothing. Mm-hmm. I mean, they did sign re-sign their long snapper, and they did bring in a pass rusher, Kendricks, who was supposed to go to the 49ers, and then he flipped to the Cowboys.
He did who was the player that did that to the Jets and then went back to Minneapolis? Anthony Barr, maybe?
Bill Belichick? I don't know.
Oh,
everybody does that to the Jets.
I think it was Anthony Barr.
Yeah, that's certainly possible. Anthony Barr, I do remember the Jets maybe had a shot with him. But yeah, so it seems like they're afraid to invest money in anybody because they are waiting to hear how it's going to work out with Dak. And that's troublesome. Because if you're Dak and you're playing hardball here after, going one and done again in the playoffs.
Well, Dak has all the power.
But my point, yes, he has all the power, but if he wants to win and silence the critics, you have to sign a deal that will at least be semi-team friendly so they can go out and bring guys in.
You're making sense, but you're wasting everybody's time, and here's why. And I'm not saying this like go after you, because like I just said, what you just said makes sense. But how many times do we sit here and have you said or have I said a quarterback should take less money to give their team more of a window, and it doesn't happen? The only time it's ever happened And this annoys our boss, by the way, anytime we bring it up, because our boss, David Mayernick, does not like Tom Brady. But the only quarterback who's really done it has been Brady. But Brady also had, at the time, a supermodel wife in Gisele Bündchen. Yuck. Not a fan of her anymore. She was basically, supposedly had her eyes wandering in a different direction with somebody else, and she was still married to the greatest quarterback of all time in Tom Brady. But that's really the only quarterback that has done it. I guess you could say Mahomes too, but what Mahomes did was smart, and he's now on a bargain. He just took a long deal, and then they could just spread it out and renegotiate that thing like already 2 or 3 times like they've done it. But you see Dak Prescott, he won the last negotiation, and that took several years to get done, and he's going to win this negotiation. But at this point, you know what I'll say about Dallas? What can they really do now? Free agency from the big names are pretty much over. So maybe you could go trade up in the draft, or you take someone in the draft that brings an excitement at the wide receiver position. Now, maybe that's a possibility to complement CeeDee Lamb. But at this rate, with knowing that you have a good but not a great quarterback in Dak Prescott, I think you have to ride it out now. Even with the salary cap and the cap hit being $59 million, like if you didn't already restructure that or, give him an extension where now you can move around that number for this season, like at this stage, what does it help you now at this point? Not that free agency is over, but the big names have all fallen. I saw Adam Shine had Derrick Henry on today. He said he would have loved to play for the Cowboys, but the Cowboys didn't even call Derrick Henry. So what are the Cowboys doing? Oh, they're doing what the Cowboys have done for a while. Just create headlines, create drama, and then disappoint. I don't think
the Miami Dolphins.
It's fine. I'll get to the Dolphins in just a second.
Dude, he's like, move it along, buddy, move it along.
He just Oscar music me. He was fading up the music in my great acceptance speech. But the last thing I'll say about the Cowboys, I don't think anyone should be disappointed with the Cowboys anymore. Because if you're taking the bait still, you're just a damn fool. Stu, play this team's name one more time.
The Miami Dolphins.
I hate to say it. Just be a playoff team. I think the Dolphins are ready to regress from what they did this past season. Last year was their season with the AFC being wide open, and they had so much talent, and they had so many opportunities to win big games. And outside of a victory up against the drama Dallas choking Cowboys, they didn't win jack last year. And I look at this team, sure, you still have Tua. Yeah, you still have Tyreek Hill. Yeah, you still have Jalen Waddle. Defensively, you have guys now coming off injuries, which are so unfortunate with Phillips last year and Bradley Chubb as well. You lost some pieces on the offensive line. It's like, all right, what did you do this offseason? You brought in Shaq Barrett and Jordan Poyer. Those guys are getting up there in age. Like, Barrett could still be fine. But Poyer, I don't expect much out of him with all the injuries that he suffered. I just look at this team and I'm like, all right, they're stuck in that fine team that because of their offense, right, they could win 10 games, but I don't think they'll ever be a threat. I actually expect the Dolphins to be one of those teams that made the playoffs a year ago that will miss it the following season.
The Houston Texans.
Super Bowl. I think they are a team that can be a dark horse Super Bowl team entering next season. And you look at the quarterback with CJ Stroud, they have the quarterback that you look at his projection for the next 5 to 10 years, he's a top 5 quarterback in this league. You still got Nico Collins. You got Tank Dell coming off an injury. Joe Mixon, that run game can be big, and they're going to need to rely on Joe Mixon. But defensively, you have Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. Hello. That's going to be a great 1-2 punch. And people believe in DeMeco Ryans. I'm not saying that they're a lock to get to a Super Bowl, but they are one of those dark horse contending Super Bowl teams. All righty. There we go. Stu doesn't have to cut me off anymore. Sweet Stu being rude Stu here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
The Zach Gelb Show is on the air across the nation on CBS Sports Radio. Here's Zach Gelb.
What a picture I'm seeing right now. Tweeted out by Alex Lewis, who covers the Minnesota Vikings for The Athletic. They're doing a joint press conference today. Sam Darnold and Aaron Jones are getting introduced at the same time. Isn't that disrespectful to Aaron Jones? You put the guy known for seeing ghosts and having mono in his NFL career next to a running back that has been pretty damn successful in this league. Sam Darnold and Aaron Jones next to one another at a press conference? Like Aaron Jones, he's got the shades on. He's looking real cool. And Sam Darnold, he looks like he's getting ready for kind of like a business happy hour. I don't think he has, I don't know what kind of pants he's wearing. I can't see, but he's got like one of those sweaters on. Santer, should Aaron Jones be offended that he has to do this press conference with Sam Darnold?
No, I don't think so. I mean, oftentimes what teams will do is they'll line guys up, like if they have 2 or 3 guys, and they'll just do, right, they'll do Darnold first and then Jones right afterwards, like, once he's done.
Sure.
But, like, at the end of the day, you have 2 guys there, you have the media right there. Why waste everyone's time to make them sit there for an hour and a half rather than for 45 minutes? You have them both there. You can ask them all the same questions. This way, they're, as of right now, they're the quarterback and starting running back of the Vikings. So therefore,
Aaron Jones started running back for the Vikings.
Right.
No
Darnold, we don't know if he will be the starting quarterback week 1, but at least for now, he is. Yeah. So, like, this is the backfield team. So, like, you put them together, like it's camaraderie. I'm okay with that. I don't think that Aaron Jones has done enough in this league, right? It's not like we're talking about Derrick Henry.
No.
Right? We're talking about Aaron Jones. Very good player. He hasn't done enough in this league to be like, oh, I can't believe I'm here with my own quarterback. My new starting quarterback is sitting next to me. No, come on, dude.
Do we have to dump that, by the way? You said sitting next to me. I thought I heard an H there, potentially.
What? I mean, that would be really funny.
My head is maybe in the gutter.
Doing that next to him.
I don't know. That was a little too close for me, just hearing that.
Well, it was definitely sitting, because if I tried to say the other word, it would make no sense why Sam Darnold was doing that at a press conference.
So Aaron Jones led the league in rushing touchdowns in 2019 and made a Pro Bowl. I'm not saying he's Earl Campbell, like I understand that, or Barry Sanders, but I was just not expecting to see him sitting next to Sam Darnold. Now, here's what I will say. You asked me this the other day, and I told you that I had an answer that was kind of having a fight with my heart, my head and my gut. And I was just giving you the gut answer because I didn't want to use my brain here. In all likelihood, my brain is going to win out. And I hate to say it, but Sam Darnold's going to be starting in all likelihood week 1 for the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings are sitting there at 11 in the draft. So they're in, right, the conversation for Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, right? You're in that realm, Michael Penix Jr.
If Drake May falls to 11, I would be shocked.
Well, or trading up also is what I'm saying. I think right now I could say it pretty comfortably that Caleb Williams is the number 1 overall pick and Jaden Daniels is going to be the 2nd pick of the draft. I pray that the Washington Commanders mess this up and they don't take Jaden Daniels. Please, 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 because I want Jaden Daniels on the Patriots. All right? But I don't think the Commanders, if they were under Snyder, they're definitely taking the more flashier player. So it probably doesn't matter who the owner is, but I think they're going to take Jaden Daniels in at number 2. So you have the Vikings as a team that could wait for someone to be there at 11, or they could move up in the draft. Still, with any of those names, whether it's Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, or Michael Penix Jr., I don't know if any of those guys, with the way that Kevin O'Connell may view Sam Darnold, are going to be starting week 1. Like, out of those 3, I would say the best chance to start week 1 would be Michael Penix Jr. Like, I don't think if you draft Michael Penix Jr. that you should not play him week 1 as long as he's ready and shows signs of being ready. But if they end up getting McCarthy or they end up getting Drake May, I think they're going to try to do what the Steelers did when the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett. And that's going to be you play the backup quarterback, the veteran quarterback first, and see how long he could weather that storm. Now, the problem is Mitch Trubisky was Mitch Trubisky, so he wasn't able to do that for more than a few weeks. Could I see Sam Darnold maybe having like a good 2 or 3 game stretch with Justin Jefferson, assuming he's still there, Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson? Sure. But I would be kind of surprised if once the calendar flips to October and you get midway through October, if you don't eventually hand the baton off to the youngster. But the Vikings are going to find their guy in the draft. Because once you bring in Sam Darnold, it kind of feels as if you're now out of the Justin Fields running as well. So that's just kind of my thoughts with the Minnesota Vikings. Anyway, I was perusing the good old cesspool of Twitter yesterday, and there's been some rule proposals that have been suggested by a few different teams. One is the Philadelphia Eagles. And let's just get everyone's thoughts on this. The onside kick is basically dead. There was that time, it was the Saints, where they had 3 onside kicks in a game. One was taken away, I think, because of penalty or something like that, but they recovered 2 onside kicks in a game. This is a few years ago. But outside of that, the onside kick, from what we knew of it, is pretty much dead. So the Eagles are proposing, I think this has been proposed before, but the Eagles are the team that's proposing it for 2024. They would permit a team to maintain possession of the football after a score by substituting one offensive play, 4th and 20 from the kicking team's 20-yard line for an onside kick attempt. I actually like that. And you look at 4th and 20, you could say, oh, it's a long shot of converting it. But the onside kick is such a long shot to begin with. And I know that this is an offensive league, and some people will be like, oh, maybe it's not that tough to convert a 4th and 20. But if your defense can't stop a 4th and 20, I don't care who the quarterback is, one play, 4th and 20, I don't care if it's Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, CJ Stroud, doesn't matter who your quarterback is. If your defense can't stop a 4th and 20 that ensures that you get the ball back, you don't deserve to have the football. So I'm fine with this proposal that you can maintain possession of the ball after a score by substituting one offensive play, 4th and 20, from the kicking team's 20-yard line for an onside attempt. And I guess the way they rule that would only be one time a game that you could do that, or is that just whenever you're down? I don't know the clarity on that.
Yeah, I have to clarify, but it sounds like it's just you have the option to do the onside kick or do that one play from the 4th and 20.
And I would say that should only happen in the 4th quarter. I don't think you should be able to do that whenever you want.
Sure. Now, a little bit of some numbers. For example, back in 2013, onside kick attempts were successful 18% of the time.
Okay.
Right? 2015, 15% of the time. 2017, 21% of the time they were successful.
Now, real quickly, do you have the most recent year?
Yes.
Okay. Can I guess what that number is?
Yes.
So this is from the 2023 season, right?
Correct.
I'm going to say 2%.
Close.
1.5.
2 out of 40, 5% were successful.
Wow.
5.3% were successul in 2022. So obviously, when they made changes to the kickoff rule,
40 onside kicks this past year?
And 2 of them were successful, correct.
And do you have the number from the first year you gave me?
Yes, in 2013, there were 61.
Look how much of a drop-off from 2013 to 2023.
Right.
61 attempts to 40 attempts.
Well, part of the reason why there have been fewer attempts is because they made changes to the kickoff rule.
So
you can't get a running start. So now that the percentage is lower, teams don't have as much of an incentive to go for the onside.
And you can't overstack one side.
Correct. So, as we've seen, the stats were around 18, 15% about 10 years ago. Now they're down to 5%. If you look at the stats from the past 2 or 3 years, 4th and 15 plus.
Ooh. Right, let me guess. 4th and 15, this is conversion?
So this is 4th and 15 plus. So
Okay.
anything over 15 yards and 4th down.
And does this, so this like factors in, okay, it's like 4th and 28 with the game on the line. You're just chucking a ball and it's incomplete. So the percentage on the kicks were 5%. 4th and 20 plus.
15 plus.
Oh, 15 plus. I'm going to say 35%.
13.9%.
Okay, so that was a big number by me.
Correct. 4th and 15 is 22%. 4th and over 15 is about 14%.
It's a 10% increase right there.
So the important thing is, right, 10 years ago, we were getting about 14, 15, 60% success rate on onside kicks.
Kind of the same.
Now it's down to 5%, and so it's not worth it anymore. If we go to 4th and 20, now this is 4th and 15 plus, so this is 4th and 16, 4th and 17, 4th and 18. So I'm assuming 4th and 20 is going to be around 10 to 12% success rate, right?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, that seems about right to me.
So now here's the other thing that I wonder. What happens, and I don't expect you to know this answer because you're not Dean Blandino, and probably Dean Blandino doesn't even know this answer, or Gene Steratore, whatever referee, John Parry, all these guys that we should know their names and we do know their names. TV refs annoy me. What happens on 4th and 20? You have an incomplete pass, but there's pass interference. Does that then turn into you just automatically get the first down? Like, would it just be a 15-yard penalty? Because if you have pass interference on a play, it's a spot foul, and then it's an automatic first down. I wonder what would occur in the 4th and 20 if, let's say, a defender just like mugs an offensive player, wide receiver, how they would they just give the team the first down, or would you end up just getting 10, 15 yards, and then you get closer to the first down and you get one more play to try it?
I'm assuming all rules would be the same.
Because
right?
you would have to think that the penalty would give you another opportunity, or maybe you would just get the ball. Because that would be the part that would suck out of it. Because then because defensive pass interference is so subjective. Like, we see times where there is a guy that gets mugged, there's no flag, and then you sneeze on someone, and then there is a flag. And that's the only gripe I would have with the rule, is I would need clarity on it, because it would annoy me if then we get into the ticky-tack kind of the way that the Super Bowl was called 2 years ago in the final 2 minutes, where it's like, it's not really a foul, but then a ref wants to become the story and they take over the game.
Well, one positive thing that could help quell some of your fears is one of the other rules that's being proposed that you had mentioned to me, that under 2 minutes, coaches or the booth can replay literally anything.
Yeah.
Penalties included. So if this is the case, if you're doing an onside kick with 2 minutes or below, and there is an egregiously incorrect call on a holding or a pass interference, you can review it and get it overturned.
So
if either and both of these rules pass.
Yeah, so that rule is being submitted by the Colts. Here's my only concern with this rule. I think it's good to have, but remember when pass interference was able to be reviewed and they rarely overturned it? I wonder how egregious the call's going to have to be, or how much of a miss the call's going to have to be to overturn it, because there was many times from the whole aftermath of the Saints-Rams NFC Championship game where they allowed you to review pass interference and you knew that something was called that shouldn't have been called, and they still didn't overturn it because they wanted to protect the refs. So that, to me, is something that it triggers from the last time we were able to review a penalty where it ended up being a disaster, and rarely did it get overturned. Like, I remember when I think it was like a year that happened. We would sit there and I would say, yeah, this should get overturned. Your eyes tells you it should get overturned, but your brain tells you that they never overturned it because they're protecting the zebras. The other rule that I like here, I think this one by the Lions makes a lot of sense. Protect the club's ability to challenge a third ruling following one successful challenge. That has never been something that's made sense to me in the NFL, where you get 2 challenges. If you win both of them, you get a third. But I think if you just win one challenge, you should be able to keep that challenge with the additional challenge that you already get. Like, let's say I win my first challenge and then I lose my second challenge. I shouldn't lose, in essence, that challenge that I already won, and I should be able to keep it. Like, you win a challenge, you shouldn't lose it, and you should still be able to have an opportunity to get up to 3 challenges in one game. So I love this rule by the Lions, that you get 2 challenges, you win one, you still are able to maintain that third challenge. And then the other one is by the Eagles, eliminate the first touch spot after the receiving team possesses the ball. That one I don't really care for.
Back to the challenge thing. Do you think the rule should just be you get as many challenges that you get right? You get one challenge wrong, you're out of challenges.
No.
But you can get like 90 challenges as long as you're all right. Because like you said, you shouldn't be penalized for the ref's mistakes if you're just pointing out the ref's mistakes.
No, and here's why. Because there's a lot of things that could go wrong. And if you get a coach that gets like 5 or 6 right, it's too many times that we go to the booth. Like these reviews, I would make this rule too. There should be a clock on the review. Like if you can't figure it out after a certain amount of time, You just got to keep it what it is, because the reviews do slow down the game, it feels like. I mean, I think you realize a little bit more when you're inside the stadium as well. Like, hey, it's got to be conclusive to overturn it. After looking at it a few times, you should be able to do so. If you can't get this review overturned in like 90 seconds, let's just say, and I think that's even enough time, then you move on to the next one. But I would just say the 3's fine. As long as you win one of the first 2, then you do get a third challenge. All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. It is a Thursday. We'll get to a Zach Gelb Show PSA when we return. Update time first. Here is the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Well, top-ranked Houston has now won 30 games this year in the quarterfinals of the Big 12. The top-ranked Cougars handled TCU 60-45. Earlier, it was Texas Tech over BYU 81-67. The top seed in the Atlantic 10 is out as Richmond falls to St. Joe's 66-61. Defending champ UConn had a tough time in the first half with Xavier, but ultimately rolled 87-60 and will face St. John's in the semifinals tomorrow night. UNC defeated Florida State easily 92-67, while in the Big Ten, Michigan State and Wisconsin both advance. In the SEC, it was Mississippi State over LSU by a score of 70-59. Mike Boynton is out after 7 seasons at Oklahoma State, and Vanderbilt is parting ways with Jerry Stackhouse. Sam Howell headed to Seattle with the Seahawks and Commanders, trading mid-round picks in the exchange, while the Falcons are sending former starter Desmond Ridder to the Cardinals for Rondale Moore. And the NFL reportedly investigating potential tampering by the Eagles and Falcons in their pursuit of Saquon Barkley and Kirk Cousins, respectively. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, this is Bart Winkler. I've got a new show weeknights. Join me for the Bart Winkler Show starting at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, only on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. We'll get to a Zach Gelb Show PSA coming up momentarily. But first, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Mark in Arkansas next up on the show. Mark, what's happening?
Zach, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, Mark. What do you got for me today?
Hey, I just want to talk about, we were talking about the rules. You were just talking about the rule changes you want to see.
Yeah.
Here's one that I want to see. The defensive holding, the 5-yard penalty, automatic first down, that needs to change. I just think that's a ridiculous deal.
Yeah, I'm with you because, like, it could be 4th and 25. You have a defensive holding. Then it's, all right, you get basically 25 yards and a first down. That doesn't make sense. What about defensive pass interference? Do you think that should be a spot foul, or do you think that should just be 15 yards?
I think that should be a 15-yard like they do in college, 15 yards foul. That's all it should be. It should not be a spot foul.
Mm-hmm.
Those two things I think that they need to flip. Because, like you just said, if it's 4th and 25, a 5-yard and a defensive holding, and a 5-yard penalty is a first down, no, that's not right.
I'm 100% with you, Mark.
Rules I'd like to see change.
No, it's a great call. Maybe we should make Mark the commissioner of the NFL whenever Goodell does walk away. That wouldn't be a bad one. That was a good caller suggestion right there. See, we can be positive with callers. Callers call up. They say something good. I agree. We don't have to get combative. We don't have to fight. Do you agree with that, Samter? Or are you just going to dump cold water on Mark's take and be the curmudgeon that you usually are?
No, it drives me crazy on like a 3rd and 16 where there's like some incidental quick grab on a receiver who's not even on the side of the ball. The quarterback's looking, and boom, automatic first down. Drives me crazy.
Can I make an admission to you, by the way? This has nothing to do with what we're talking about. But I've been looking at you all day, and I feel really bad about it. Really bad about it. What's that snack that you have in your desk, by the way?
Oh, you took one.
What's the snack that you have? Explain the snack.
It's Trader Joe's dark chocolate covered rice cake thins, and they're delicious.
So you told me about them. You let me sample one like 2 weeks ago. Last night I walked out of the studio, and I wanted to walk home, which I did, which is an extra like 25, 30 minutes. But since I was at that conference yesterday, the Barrett Sports Media Conference, I didn't have anything in the morning, and I had a very light lunch. So I needed something to hold me over until I got home. And I was like, I know if I go into the Samter drawer, there's a drawer of sweet treats. And I did pop one of those rice cake, chocolate-covered rice cakes. And I felt bad because I don't like to usually go into people's things without asking. But you basically put the cheese out there if I was a rat and you were begging me to get trapped. And I felt bad that I didn't ask you about that yesterday.
You are a rat. Look at that.
Jeez.
I put the cheese out there, and like a rat, you went right to it, I guess.
Delicious.
I do have a second confession to make.
What?
So I was at Trader Joe's the other day.
You bought a new box?
I bought 3 packages because I knew that you liked them. No, I knew that you liked them. Mm-hmm. And I was like, you know
nice
what?
Of you.
Zach is going to want more of these. So I bought 3 packages. I got 2 more at home. I brought 1 in here. So while I'm a little bit disappointed that you didn't ask, they are there for your taking. Good. And I intentionally bought extra ones because I knew that you liked them and I was trying to be a good producer.
Look at Samter being a nice guy. How about that? A benevolent fella.
Who would have thought?
I have a good cookie story that it goes with a radio legend.
There's never a bad time for a good cookie story.
The great Christopher Mad Dog Russo, when I worked at Sirius, I was in a meeting with one of our former bosses, Eric Spitz. I guess Spitz has a cabinet that has Vienna fingers, which is an underrated, one of my favorite cookies ever growing up as a kid. Dog knows about that. So when I was working at Sirius, I'm sitting on the couch and talking to Spitz and going in one of these meetings. And Dog comes in. He's like, oh, Zachary, great to see you today. Always great to have you aboard on the team. 888 Mad Dog 6. And I thought he was just being like nice, like, oh, welcoming me to the team. I've known Dog for pretty much my entire life. Nah, he was there to get some cookies. He goes, Spitz got a little secret stash of cookies. I wonder if there was a secret stash of those gummies that he talks about all the time on First Take that he pops on the weekend all the time as well. Mad Dog Russo.
Well, he was just on today, and he got Brian Windhorst's name wrong, Dominique Foxworth's name wrong, and Molly Karam's name wrong.
He made Dominique
back to back.
He made Dominique Foxworth Italian. He called him Dominic Foxworth.
It was Dominic Windhorst and Molly Karam.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jeez. All right, let's get to a Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Warning. It's a Thursday. What do you have to say? It's the weekly Zach Gelb Show PSA.
Who's with me? Let's go! Come on! Hey!
You guys know me. I was already livid that the college football playoff this year is expanding from 4 teams to 12 teams. I said 12 is way too many. If they had to expand, 6 or 8. And I knew those greedy pigs would eventually go from 12 to more teams. This has been out there. Now ESPN is reporting that the 14-team college football playoff is expected to be formalized in the next 24 hours, ESPN reports. The new format would begin in 2026. So 2 years of 12 teams, and then we're going to 14. You're taking away from the regular season. You're allowing too many teams that don't belong, and you're ruining the college football that I knew it, that I've known of it. Ugh. My PSA. When something is working, don't try to fix it. The college football playoff format wasn't broken. You didn't need to fix it. If you need to make an alteration, a minor alteration, all right, I'm fine. 6-8 teams. But eventually going from 4 to 12, then to 14 is an absolute disgrace. So my PSA, when things are broken, don't try to be innovative and try to fix everything.
I think that it's worth being fixed.
Good.
It's broken. It needs to be fixed.
Taking more cookies after the show, then.
Yeah, well, they're not cookies. They're rice.
You know what I mean.
Rice cake thins.
Tomato. It's a cookie. It's a chocolate-covered thing. It's a cookie.
A chocolate-covered thing. Yes, that's how they should market it.
If I was in Philly, I would call it a John.
Have some chocolate-covered things. Yum. So my PSA today, we heard Cam Newton earlier today kind of throwing shade at Kirk Cousins.
You like that.
We heard Isaiah Thomas yesterday saying that Steph Curry wasn't a true point guard. We had a cut today that we never got to of Shaq basically saying nobody's afraid of LeBron. I'm not saying that guys who used to play the sport shouldn't give their opinions.
Ooh, this is spicy.
But, man, when some of these old guys are just like, back in my day, or like, guys in today's game can't do... You know what? Just, like, give it up. You're done. You're not playing anymore. Let these guys play. At a certain point, there's a difference between just being critical of what is happening in the sport that you played, and then there's just sour grapes. And I'm starting to hear a lot of these guys just sour grapes, just negativity towards the current state of whatever sport they play, baseball, basketball, football, hockey, whatever. And there's just sour grapes.
Well, basketball, I think it's fair because the basketball product now sucks. All the other sports,
But sometimes it's not even about the product. It's about the player, or it's about just, Steph Curry's not a point guard because he shoots a lot. Well, he also, passes the ball, and he brings the ball up a lot. So it's a positionless kind of game, so you can't really say anything. Tim Duncan was a forward, but really he was a center, but he's actually a forward. At the end of the day, just stop being such a curmudgeon and enjoy the sport that you played, and things are going to change, things are going to develop over time, and just get used to it and suck it up and deal and shut up.
All righty. Stu, send this home.
Mine is kind of what we talked about in the first segment of the show. I sat down, I saw a tweet from Ari Mirov saying that the NFL is looking into potential tampering by the Eagles with Saquon Barkley and the Falcons with Kirk Cousins. It's the worst. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Yes, they probably both tampered, but guess what? Every other team tampered. I'm sure all the deals that were signed, between 4 Eastern and 5 Eastern on Monday, you know what? They were all tampered, I'm sure. I'm sure there was communication with other teams. And this is not just a football thing. Happens in baseball, basketball, probably every sport in the world. It's just one of the dumber things.
I like that. Little fire from Stu. You know why Stu likes it so much? And why he doesn't want tampering to be kind of followed through with punishments? Because his Lakers do it all the time. Let's be real.
It's also true.
They're always a Lakers tampering issue, it feels like. All right, that wraps up the Zach Gelb Show on a Thursday. We'll be back tomorrow. Daniel Jeremiah will stop by at 3 p.m. Eastern, or 20 minutes after 3 p.m. Eastern. The show gets underway at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. I am off to Madison Square Garden tonight, the world's most famous arena, for a little Big East tournament. So if you want to follow along on social media, Instagram, Twitter, I'll put some things up there at Zach Gelb. I know we're on in Omaha. I know we're on in Milwaukee. I get to see Providence up against Creighton, and then I also get to see Villanova up against Marquette. So we'll get some good content up there. All righty, we will wrap up the week tomorrow. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Big thanks to each and every one of you for tuning in today, calling, listening, interacting. YouTube.com/CBS Sports Radio. Or if you listen to us on one of our great CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app. Stu, gracias, Samter, thank you very much. Those rice cakes loaded up, baby. All right, we out. Bye-bye. Peace.